Imagine living 60 miles away from a grocery store and not having access to water within your own home, all while trying to quarantine during the global pandemic that is COVID-19. Although this scenario sounds like it occurs in other countries, it happens right here in America, specifically on Native American reservations. Many people living on reservations lack the utilities and resources necessary to quarantine for long periods of time. The federal government has allocated emergency funds to tribes, but it is not enough. Due to the federal trust responsibility, the United States government has a legal obligation towards federally recognized tribes, and not allocating sufficient funds to those tribes breaks that federal trust responsibility. That is why I'm advocating for you to contact your congressional representatives and state senators to tell them that federally recognized tribes should receive more COVID-19 relief funding. I know from personal experience the lack of resources and utilities rural tribes face. Many of my family members who live on the Navajo reservation have to haul unregulated well water and have outhouses instead of plumbing. I will describe the hardships that Navajo families faces and explain why the solution is for the federal government to allocate more emergency funds to the Navajo Nation and the consequences if this solution is not met. You might be wondering, why specifically the Navajo Nation? The Navajo Nation faces several resource disparities that have contributed to the high rates of COVID-19 infection and deaths. The Navajo Nation spans from northeast Arizona, northwest New Mexico, southeast Utah, and we have a population of about 350,000 people. As of today, there are over 2,737 cases of COVID-19 and 73 deaths. The Navajo Nation alone has lost more people to COVID-19 than 13 other states, according to CNN. As I have stated before, living in a rural community has its challenges. The Navajo Nation Environmental Protection Agency estimates that up to 1/3 of Navajo citizens must haul water because they're not served by piped water systems, most of these sources being unregulated well water. Food scarcity is also an issue because the reservation is a food desert, meaning that grocery stores are about 60 miles away. Food deserts also cause health issues like obesity, which can increase the risks of cardiovascular diseases and diabetes. These health issues make you more susceptible to COVID-19, according to CDC. Plus the major health clinics and hospitals run by Indian Health Services are underfunded by 60%, according to the National Congress of American Indians, making it more difficult to receive adequate care. Because the Navajo Nation has more confirmed COVID-19 per capita than every state except New York and New Jersey, according to the New York Daily News, there should be more emergency funds allocated to the Navajo Nation. In addition to the devastating health consequences without economic intervention for the Navajo Nation and other rural tribes, it is approximated by Harvard Project preliminary results that the states and regions surrounding reservations could face a loss of $127 billion in annual spending on goods and services. This problem needs to be solved with more federal funding for tribal nations. As of right now, there is an $8 billion stabilization fund from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act for tribal nations, but as I have discussed before, there is a desperate need for more emergency funding. With an increase in emergency funding, the Navajo Nation will have more money to purchase PPE, medical supplies and equipment, and to allocate necessary resources to Navajo citizens, instead of relying out-of-pocket grassroots organized funding. Right now, almost $1 million has been raised through a GoFundMe. This grassroots funding has been organized due to the lack of money from the federal government. There's a special nation-to-nation relationship with the federal government, so tribal nations should receive the same, if not more, money than states per capita. The suggested amount for tribes to receive via the Stabilization Fund is $20 billion. This suggestion was made by Arizona State Senator Martha McSally and Montana State Senator Steve Daine in a letter to Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. This amount is desired because industries on reservations contribute upwards of $50 billion per year to the United States economy, according to that letter. If the Navajo Nation and other tribes do not receive more federal funding, COVID-19 cases and deaths will increase. Elders are the most at risk during this pandemic, and they are vital in passing down traditional knowledge. With the loss of elders, not only will the population suffer, but the culture. Some of my Navajo friends and peers have lost grandparents or an elder that is important to them during this pandemic, and it is painful knowing that their deaths could have been prevented if the tribe had more funds for life-saving resources. Overall, due to the outstanding COVID-19 cases and deaths per capita, there needs to be an increase in emergency federal funding on the Navajo Nation. How would you feel if you lived in a community without easy access to resources like water, grocery stores, and health care? Wouldn't you want your community to receive adequate funding? That is why I'm advocating for you to contact your congressional representative and state senators to tell them that tribes should receive more COVID-19 relief funding, specifically $20 billion for the Stabilization Fund. Aheha, ashode, nehe akod yeskid. I said thank you, and please support us in Navajo. Thank you.